guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called Updated Version Scandinavian vs American CA/NC or UAU building methods. Let's compare. So obviously, like, this is very specifically about like building. I do not know. I think that, well, like Scandinavian like building, although this probably means like our architecture and infrastructure as in actual like homes and buildings, but I'm thinking, and I can only think of IKEA. So when I think of building, I'm like, oh, it's Scandinavia building IKEA. But yes, I know that that's probably not the case. So I really do not know. I think like there's a lot of like it's very like minimalistic, but I know that's the case in Scandinavia, but I do not know like how does that translate to actual building methods. So this is gonna be very interesting. Let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe. True.
For those of you who are new to my channel, I have a channel where you can watch me build a house from scratch. Nordic building styles differ somewhat from the rest of the world, both in a good and a bad way.
Okay.
In this video series about different building styles around the world, I thought I'd try to collect as much as I can in these videos.
When I see this, I'm like, where do you put the basement? Is that the basement?
The last video with the same topic gave
Do Scandinavian houses even have basements?
over 1,500 comments in a couple of weeks. I have read every single comment at least 2 times. It turns out that my observations of how others build were both right and wrong. With more knowledge, based on your comments and my own research, I want to start over and do a more serious analysis. I made the first video mostly for fun, but the topic is interesting and educational. When I started as a carpenter, I could only dream of content like this. So together with you, I want to gather.
I know that obviously carpenters like build furniture and obviously they work on houses, but I didn't know that they built the whole thing from scratch.
As much knowledge as possible in these videos, for the next generation of builders. This series only applies to wooden houses that are more common in Northern Europe, Canada, and the USA.
Okay.
Many wooden houses are also built in Russia, Australia, and New Zealand.
It's crazy because all those countries, I'm trying to think, what do they have in common? It's like nothing. They have like wildly different climates. So I'm like coming up short.
From roughly the bottom of Sweden downwards, stone houses are more common. In the US, on the other hand, you find wooden houses all the way down to Florida.
Yeah.
In northern Canada and Sweden, log houses are more common, but that is not something I cover.
That, I think that's, yes, because it's probably like very cold, so it like maintains the warmth a little bit better.
In this video, the house I am building is located near Stockholm, and approximately at 60 degrees on the latitude scale, which would correspond to northern Canada.
Makes sense.
Sweden is a long country with varying temperatures, and we have to adapt our houses for it.
Okay.
There are many
I know how varying it is. Like, for me, it's just like cold.
of you who question the methods Scandinavian builders use. And at the beginning I didn't understand why. But it's simple. We build the same things, but in different ways. I have been a carpenter for almost 30 years, and the methods I use are not something I invented myself. The only difference is, I am building the house alone, and have to adapt the build for that.
Building a house like on your own, that's like, so I cannot even like contemplate this. Like, it's to me so wild that I'm like, I cannot even imagine it.
My house burned down about 10 months prior to this video.
Oh no.
And even though I applied for a building permit for the previous house, which was completed in 2018, I still needed to apply for a new. I thought the building permit took a long time to get, but it can take several years in other countries. Apparently this has to do with corruption. So that it took me 3 to 4 months is probably good. Let me tell you how a building permit works in Sweden.
He's like, it's taken us such a long time, I'll build it myself.
I think it is done in a similar way in most modern countries. As I have mentioned in the previous video, it is quite a strict process with personal meetings, many documents and high costs. All rules now
I would assume it's the same everywhere because I know that it's like a very like there's a lot of bureaucracy involved. I have no idea, but I do think like it makes sense to me.
naturally benefit the industry, which can charge high costs for doing fairly simple tasks. To save time and a lot of money, I did almost everything myself.
That's
I
crazy.
have done this a couple of times, and it's very easy.
Well, because you can.
You can actually do everything yourself.
It's because you know what you're doing. Like if you're not involved in this, like maybe do not do this yourself.
The only thing you need to do is to hire an architect or a constructor so that the bearing capacity of the house is correctly calculated.
Yes.
Everything else is paperwork. This is what you have to send in.
Do you need a lawyer?
Construction drawings, similar to what I show now. The drawings must contain
To me, like this is like a blueprint.
cross sections and weight calculations. You let an expert do this.
Of
What
course.
you do is draw your house and send it to them and they do the rest. In Sweden, you can Google building permit
It's like how do I draw a house? I do not know. I would put like a stick figure.
and you will find several that will help you with this. Cost approximately 25,000 crowns, which corresponds to approximately 2,500 US dollars. You also need to
I would assume that's kind of cheap, right? Like I'm not crazy to think of like because I think like oh this is very expensive, but $2,000 doesn't sound like too bad, right?
make a fire protection description that shows how to get out in the event of a fire. You can
Okay.
do it yourself or hire a professional.
Hire a
Cost about
professional.
4,000 crowns or 400 US dollars. The constructor must also provide you with dimensioning certificates, facade drawings and site plan drawings. When everything is approved, you will receive a control plan to follow, which you fill in
For all I know, this could be like Japanese or some other language that I have no idea what this is. I don't know what it means.
every step of the way. This document must be available on the construction site during any inspection. During the construction, the municipality comes and inspects critical points such as the frame, bathrooms, electricity, etc.
Okay, makes sense.
But of course it's different in the rest of the world, like in the US as an example according to the comment section. Building codes and code enforcement vary widely across the US.
I'm thinking also like in the US you have like the Owners Home Association, and I actually do not know if they get involved at this in this process if you're like building a house from scratch.
Part of that is because of different soils, weather, and natural disaster risks, but it's also because of how the government is structured. The states have authority over building codes, with limited involvement by the federal government. As a
It's true.
practical matter, the states delegate most permitting and code enforcement to city or county government.
Yeah, the county like
Or as they say
I think the county like looks, you know, like no, you can't build this like in this place. But I think obviously they'll tell you before you actually build this. Hopefully,
in Finland,
Permits. I am in Finland and asked the city if I could build a little woodshed in my yard. They told me to get an architect and a contractor.
I started as a house
that's it.
founder and bricklayer when I was young. The most common and cheapest type of foundation we built was crawl space foundations. This type fits well over here, as I am building on a downhill slope. A concrete slab would have been too complicated, and that is why I choose a crawl space foundation.
if you're trying to like a downhill slope, I'm like, isn't it that dangerous and kind of like super complicated to build because it's like this?
This type of foundation is relatively inexpensive. My foundation with blocks, gravel and concrete cost about 45,000 crowns or 4,500 US dollars.
Wow, that's so cheap.
When I compare how we cast the concrete slab for the brick, we seem to do it differently. We usually peel off the entire ground, and then prepare it with geotextiles, and gravel of various kinds. In my previous video, I mentioned that a common method in the US is to dig a trench that you fill with concrete like in this video. This is true to some extent. This method may work well in the southern United States, but worse in the north where they have to build the foundation to withstand frost and rapid temperature changes.
Oh, okay.
I have never
trust.
seen this type of foundation in Scandinavia, but I can see advantages of it in a warmer climate. The method is fast, and gives a strong foundation as you can make it very thick in a simple way. The trench filled with concrete style of foundation is only common in areas with solid well-drained ground. In the Northwest we do our foundations more like this video shows.
Yeah, I think it's just like the soil, but I'm trying to think of like it. Obviously the soils look different, but it's not just that. I'm thinking also like snow and how humid like a soil is. I think probably like has an influence on this.
And here's another good comment from New Zealand. There's a similar one from Australia too. The foundation construction is very different, as we have earthquakes in New Zealand, so we need to build our foundations to withstand seismic activity. We sometimes do footings, a trench dug into the ground, reinforcing steel laid on top then encased in concrete, and piles, similar to the American way you showed in the video.
Yeah, because anti-seismic like infrastructures, I know that they're a thing, and obviously they're built like this, but I do not know what makes a structure like this. Is this like the foundation, like it has to withstand like earthquakes and stuff, or just like the columns and stuff?
I can easily see the advantages of anchoring the foundation into the ground, instead of having it floating on top. Especially with countries
I think to me, this is safer, but again, I have no idea about this.
dealing with earthquakes.
Yeah. I think just like by nature, something that's floating on top, it's gonna be like a little bit like more unsafe than something is just like stuck in the ground. And if I were me, I would like put the foundation over there. But again, I do not know.
Many wonder why I don't bury my foundation below frost level. I can't, I have rock underneath. The same applies to my water, which can only be buried about 80 centimeters or 3 feet. I anchor the foundation to the rock instead, and use heating cable in the water pipe. I pour concrete
Okay, but like rock as well, like make it sturdy.
for the walls, and to get the levels right. The most commented part
Seeing this, I'm like, it's crazy that this guy is literally doing this by himself.
was frame construction. Until now, the construction methods have been quite similar in all countries, but now it will be different. We can start by comparing lumber. Canadians and Scandinavians usually use thicker lumber, as we have to deal with snow, and need more insulation.
Yeah.
We also have better quality of the wood, which means that we can have a wider CC or OC measurement, which saves money. A longer distance between the studs works well for us, as we have thicker lumber. The wood is also of high quality, C24. Let's look at the CC or OC distance. For those of you who don't know, it means the distance between the centers of the studs.
Okay.
In the US they call it OC, or on center, and in Europe we call it CC, which means center to center. In Scandinavia, the most common CC distance is 60 centimeters, but we also have 45 and 30 centimeters depending on what we are building.
But why?
60 centimeters for walls, floor joists and
It varies like so much.
decks. 45 centimeters in the ceiling, and when we use 90 centimeters board material. 30 centimeters for denser ceilings, bathroom walls and floors. Our CC measures for roof trusses are very wide, and CC 120 centimeters, more on that later. The rest of Europe seems to have a CC standard of 62.5 centimeters. Their board and insulation are adapted to that measurement.
Okay,
Russia
so it's
seems to
standard.
be a mix of the whole world and has a CC standard of 64 centimeters, which is a very odd measurement. Given that their
I think it's crazy how that like nowhere else is just like it's the same. It varies so much. Like why?
plasterboards are of Scandinavian standard, and OSB of German or French standard. But Russia is the world's largest country, and borders the rest of us, so it's easy to understand that they trade materials depending on availability.
Oh, okay.
Australia
Good-
and New
good point.
Zealand are surprisingly similar to Canada or Scandinavia with their construction methods. Even their CC measurements follow Scandinavian standards.
But why? That's weird.
Canada usually takes the best of both worlds, but their CC or OC measurements lean more towards the US, and are OC 16 inches, or sometimes like Scandinavia, OC 60
Makes sense. Like they're in the same continent, so maybe that's the case. Like maybe that's why.
centimeters or 24 inches, depending on where they build. In the US, the most common OC measure is 16 inches or 40 centimeters. The US is large, and ranges from tropical to frost, so having a specific standard is probably difficult. They
Yeah.
also build with Scandinavian measures, OC 24 inches. Canada and the US calls this advanced framing. Not because it is advanced,
Oh,
but
that's
more
what it
because
is.
advanced materials are used to compensate for the load-bearing capacity.
Oh, okay.
Scandinavians build simpler exterior walls, while the rest of the world is more advanced. We don't have to think about earthquakes or storms when we build, so we're stuck with these old methods. This probably includes the fact that we have been poor, and build houses more sparingly.
Okay.
The only thing we
Very frugal, which is a good thing.
need to think about is the weight of snow, and solve it with a so-called hammer band, that helps distribute the
How heavy is the snow? It's the snow.
weight of the trusses. Instead of hammer band, the rest of the world uses a so-called double top plate, which is two joists that tie each other together over the wall, and especially the corners. This method gives more strength to the corners of the house. But a double top plate cannot handle the same weights as a hammer band, and the trusses must be in line with the studs in the wall. I've looked a lot at different construction
This is a
methods,
nightmare.
and I think a hammer band
Just like thinking of doing this, I'm like, it's giving me a nightmare just to like make everything like measures properly. And what happens if you make a mistake? Like, it would be a nightmare.
has more advantages than a double top plate, even in the US. A standing joist that we jack into the wall studs is what we call a hammer band. The function is the same as a header, but it spans the entire wall. Jacking them in is quick and takes maybe 30 seconds per stud, with the right tools.
Okay. He's making it look easy. I don't think it's that easy in real life. Well, obviously if you're hiring professionals, they're gonna do it quickly. But like him. Like if you or like any random person like does this, it's not gonna take them 40 seconds or 30.
Together with the top plate, you create a type of C-beam that can handle very high loads. With the hammer band, you don't need headers over doors and windows. You can also add an extra header, if you have thick enough walls.
Okay.
And you don't need to align the trusses to each stud below, but it is still recommended to do so.
Yeah, I think it looks better as well.
If you need to tie the corners together, as you do with a double top plate, you can do it with a hammer band too by adding one on the long side of the wall. A hammer band on the long side is called Rost band, and is used for other roof
This is like Tetris.
types and to tie the corners together better. I don't need a Rost band on my house, as the bottom of the truss acts as a reverse hammer band. What if we did both?
Yeah, I can see the explanation. It's like, yes.
Let's use this American frame as an example. There are a couple of details that set us apart. We reinforce openings with a king stud, the same way as Americans. But fire blocks are very uncommon. It's an interesting concept, and prevents fire from spreading between the compartments, but I don't know if it would help us as we have OSB behind the plaster, and usually use mineral or stone wool as insulation. Headers are not needed, since we use
it's like they don't need this.
the hammer band. We also have a wider CC measurement, but otherwise it looks pretty much the same. Since I am building myself, I wait with all reinforcements so that the walls will be easier to erect. That's why it looks sparse now, but there's a lot more to come.
Yeah, like good. I hadn't thought of this. Like this is quite heavy. How is he doing this like by himself?
Many people wonder why I build walls without a floor, and there are several reasons. For my own sake, I do it to be able to erect the trusses with a certain technique that you will see further on.
Okay.
For practical reasons, it is quite common to do this in Northern Europe. Let me explain. The risk of rain is high over here. The weather can change in a matter of hours. If I insulate and install chipboard, it will be ruined in the event of rain. Many of you say that the floor dries and that there is no risk, but this is not true. If rain gets into the 20 to 30 centimeters thick insulation, it takes months for it to dry, especially for us who have short summers. We are used to working this way. Some over here put the floor on, and some don't, and I'm one of them. I could have put
the concept of like the thing, like the floor taking months to dry, like mind blowing.
temporary boards to walk on, but I'm used to work like this. For me it makes no difference. Some also
It's always like because he's used to, because he'll be scared of like something falling down on the ground, or me like falling on the ground.
say that the walls cannot be attached properly to the floor joist without a floor, but I think it's the other way around. Each nail or screw goes straight into the floor joist instead of into the chipboard, which should provide a stronger construction. On the short
I was thinking the same. It's like, no, it's actually like safer because it's like the last thing you put on top.
side, I'm waiting with the floor joist to attach the wall, as it needs to be insulated first, but that wall will be properly attached later. Here's another reason why I don't put on the floor. The truss has to go down between the floor joists so that I can raise the trusses myself. This is probably not common, and a bit dangerous, but when I was younger I learned the technique from the elders.
Oh my, okay.
I have received lots of comments about the trusses having too little wood, and that they will probably break from the pressure of snow.
I think he knows what he's doing.
This truss construction is probably the most common in Sweden. We've been building trusses like this for generations.
Exactly. Like, no, this didn't come out of like a thin air. Like it's just a trial and true method.
And I've never heard of them breaking or even bending. They are really strong.
Okay, I believe you.
Just like with walls, Americans and Canadians have other methods, with ridge beams, queen posts and so on. We make it a little easier and it works well for us. Our roofs carry enormous amounts of snow, without any problem. What puzzles other countries?
It's insane, seriously, how he's doing this by himself. Like, I'm just like, this is incredible.
Is that I work a bit backwards. What you see now is far from finished. I will reinforce the walls and the roof later, as we build another wall, a so-called installation wall. More on that later.
Okay, yeah. Let's skip
I
forward.
also get many comments that I erect trusses without sheet material on the walls. People are worried that the house will collapse, especially when I put a roof before reinforcement. But I'm not worried. A square with triangles on top is going nowhere. I also have cross rulers to keep
It's like, it's science. It's not going anywhere.
everything in place. It would take an earthquake to topple the frame as it is now.
And if there's like an earthquake, and you have like bigger problems than this.
This part of the build is very interesting, as there are so many different methods. Modern houses,
I love that the roof, yes, it's kind of crazy that he put like the roof on first, but it's kind of crazy that it already looks like a house.
even in Sweden, have plaster or other boards on the outside walls, but not as much OSB as in USA or Canada. OSB on the outside does not work so well in our climates, with our old methods. So we usually use windcloth, or asphalt board. Instead, many of us use OSB on the inside, as you will see later. Having OSB on the inside compensates for the structural load-bearing capacity that we lose by having windcloth or asphalt board.
Okay. You can have plaster, okay.
As
yeah.
it stands now, the house looks quite fragile, but when the walls are finished, they will be reinforced, and about 30 centimeters or 11.8 inches thick.
That's good, I think.
We solve the shear loads with the installation wall, that will be added later. When we make a crawl space foundation, we put a vapor barrier directly on the gravel, to prevent vapor from rising into the structure. The plastic also helps against radon gases, that can come from the ground.
Oh my god, okay. Didn't know that.
In cold climates, it is common to cross-insulate, to prevent cold air to pass through the cracks. We do it in floors, walls and ceilings.
Yeah.
Foam insulation does a better job, but contains many toxins, and therefore uncommon where I am.
What?
I think they have a
I thought foam was like the standard.
solution with soy-based foam, but I don't know how far they have come with it. Instead, we have companies that inject regular insulation, but it is quite expensive. I have seen that foam insulation is very common in the US and it seems to be very effective.
Yeah.
But there also seem to be many who are harmed by it.
Okay, like in a toxic way? I didn't know they had toxic fumes.
Laying chipboard or OSB as the first floor seems to be the same everywhere. Our chipboards are small as we have rules for how much you can carry. Otherwise, it looks the same in most countries. In Scandinavia, we rarely use OSB or plywood on the roofs. One reason is that we have a very large CC measurement between the trusses. OSB or plywood would not work well. Instead,
Isn't plywood like a very thin type of wood?
we use tongue and groove boards. This takes a long time to lay, but it is a very good choice as the house can move better. The correct way to lay tongue and groove boards is as I do now. One at a time so that the joints end up randomly. After a couple of meters I had to change tactics as rain was coming. To speed up the work, I put them in a row. This isn't quite ideal, as you get a long joint which weakens the construction. But in my case it's okay. I'll reinforce the underside of the roof later, with an installation wall, that ties everything together.
Okay, he's getting help. Like there was someone else, like good. But I'm like, I'd be so concerned about the rain there. I'm like, oh my god, can you give me like a tent like thing, a tarp to like cover my whole house? What will be my house? I'm scared of this getting wet.
But even if I could use OSB on the roof, I would choose tongue and groove. It is such a much better choice of material, as it can move and let moisture through better. As a roof covering,
Why would you want moisture? Isn't this bad?
I will choose black tiles.
Not in general, but like in houses.
It is rare to see Swedish houses with, for example, shingles, which is common in other countries.
Yeah, why?
We choose tiles, or roofing sheets, most of the times.
Oh.
In Europe, we prefer and mostly use screws for everything, while nails still seem to be more common in the US. Modern screws
It's crazy because I've never like, I never thought of this in my life.
are very strong and usually stronger than nails, so fewer are needed. A modern screw bend,
Okay.
instead of snapping, just like a nail. According to the comments, many countries are switching to screws, as they are becoming stronger than nails. And as usual, Canadians are quick to adapt.
It's really like, what's tougher, like a nail or a screw? Like, okay, I didn't know this, but okay, now I know.
Most of the comments regarding screw came from Canada. As I mentioned earlier, we can replace the headers with the hammer band. Although it is not necessary, I put a double, just to be safe. The reason I do it now is so that I get insulation in between.
Is that a door? How do does
The
he already
vapor
have to
barrier
work
has
in
been a
Windows?
tough debate. We have those who think you should absolutely not use it, and those who think we should. It's a wild discussion. I'm on the side that thinks we should have it. If you have thick walls, moisture can get stuck in the insulation. In my last video, I asked you with knowledge to explain why you should have a vapor barrier. There were more replies than I could imagine, and everyone seems to be on the same page. Vapor barrier is needed in modern houses. There were so many good answers that it would take me an hour to show
I don't think I've ever heard like this term in my life.
them all. Here is one that sums it up well. Vapor barrier is needed in modern houses that's very heavily insulated. The temperature of the air passing through the wall is linear through a material. If the temperature drops to low, you will have condensation from the air. In heavily insulated walls, that could happen inside the wall, leading to
Okay.
water damage.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Condensation bad. It makes sense. Like, if you tell me the science, I'm like, yes, I get it.
There were also many comments about having the vapor barrier on the outside, depending on the climate. It's beyond my knowledge, but it sounds logical.
Yeah, sure, but like, wouldn't you want like the protection like inside of it? Well, no, actually, it makes sense to have it like outside because then it doesn't get like it doesn't pass through.
But with a vapor barrier, good ventilation is required. I will put special ventilation with heat exchangers in the walls after the house is built. More on that in my later videos. This part of the build was interesting. It turns out we're pretty much on our own when it comes to building a plumbing and electrical installation wall. The wall also gives us an opportunity to cross-insulate.
This is giving me like, wow, like, is it even the electric? Like, it's true. Like, this is how, like, the electrical process and the plumbing, I think it's very different from like the actual structure of the house. So it's crazy that you like, are you doing this yourself as well?
The wall also strengthens the house's shear, which we miss if we don't put board material on the wall. According to the comments, Denmark makes installation walls the same way, which I did not know at the time.
Makes sense.
Norway and Sweden do everything very similarly, so it doesn't surprise
Yeah, it makes sense because they're in the same place.
me. If Norway builds installation walls too, please leave a comment about it.
Probably as well, yes.
Another advantage is that electricians and plumbers do not have to cut into the vapor barrier when they work. This should be a standard everywhere, as there
Yeah.
are only benefits to it and it doesn't cost much to do.
True.
We probably don't need to discuss gutter hooks. We seem to do it the same way by attaching them to the fascia. I'm a bit complicated and do it the old-fashioned way, but it's not necessary.
What's the old-fashioned way?
In Sweden, it is more common to have OSB behind the plasterboard than without. We have an idea that the walls should be able to support shelves, cupboards and other things.
Yeah.
I personally would never buy a house without OSB or chipboard behind the plaster.
Okay.
It is not a big expense. You can also have cheaper chipboards to have the price. There are only advantages to it. In my case, the extra cost is about 10,000 crowns or $1,000.
Oh, it's not that. Yeah, it's not that cheap. That's steep
Comparing
at
the
all.
way electricians do their work is interesting.
Okay, yes, electricians are like I hired electricians to do this part.
Scandinavians who build wooden houses always put the cable in conduit, but many countries put cable directly in the wall. To me it sounds completely crazy as you cannot replace the cable if you are going to renovate or repair it. But it is of course about costs.
Okay, but on the roof, like I would think you need to. I don't know, like anywhere else, like it's crazy. I don't know, like you wish you'd invent something that makes everything wireless. I don't know if we're there yet, as in like technology.
Some countries have solved it by asking the customer if they want to pay for the extra material. But how much can a conduit cost?
Okay.
In Sweden it is about 5 cents per meter. In Europe it's all about
Isn't that
saving
cheap?
money, but what about in the US? Listen to this. Lower current means smaller wire size. In Europe, the wire inside of the conduit are mostly braided. This means flexibility.
Yeah.
Solid copper wire is very difficult, even impossible to pull through flex conduit. Makes sense.
Actually, I think like all those wires, I think are very sort of like they're very delicate and they like can break easily. So I don't know. That's like as far as my knowledge goes.
Thank you for that comment. Just like with electricity, it is common to have the water pipe in another pipe. We call it pipe in pipe, and leads away any leaks. You can also change the pipe without tearing up the wall. More on that in the next part.
That to me is super important because like I'm constantly worrying about this. Like what happens in the future when you need to replace this down the line? Like do you have to like break down your wall?
I'll probably do a part 2 after I get a little further. The kitchen I will build is very American inspired, so it can be fun to compare.
Okay.
When it comes to kitchens, I prefer the American style with pot fillers and other smart solutions. So that's what I'm going to build. I think I'll do like the last one. I release a version where I ask questions and show our way of doing things. With your comments, we summarize everything. See you soon, and thank you for watching.
It's so funny because it's like when he was talking about the kitchen, like my mind absolutely goes, oh, it's American inspired. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, it's an open concept? Or what do you mean? Like a lot of cupboards? And he's like, it didn't occur to me. No, as in the actual building of the kitchen, not as in like, oh, the placement and decoration. But like, just like where my mind went, I'm like, oh, like a country kitchen? Like, what are you thinking of? But yes, okay, this is very clearly just about building, not about like placement and sort of like the decor and the whole, I don't know, the whole like places of things. I think it's like very interesting how, I wouldn't say like, of course there's like some differences and he made like a good job at explaining them. I don't know if I'm like that well versed in like the techniques of like how Americans actually build their houses and Canadians, New Zealanders, Australians, and whatever. But I think it's interesting that I can tell that even though like, again, I don't know like anything about building and infrastructure, architecture, or anything, but I can tell just like by looking at how he was building like the whole house, how different like it is. It looks different from American, like how Americans like build their houses. It's not I could tell you exactly like, oh, I like there's a difference and a specific difference in this part or in this part. But I don't know like how it is, but I'm like, no, it's different from anything that I've seen previously. Not that I've seen a lot, but from what I've seen, it's very different. I think especially, and not only on like an American house, but I think on other houses, I think it's just like the fact that it's just like wood, because I'm trying to think of like other sort of like videos and stuff that I've seen. And where they put like the bricks and it's all about like concrete and actual like bricks, as in like you have to place all the bricks and everything has to like be like in a very specific location and a very specific placement, and it looks very different, like even starting like again from like obviously the bricks, the structure, and also like the order in which they do things like in those type of houses, I think, and even like down to the foundation. Like the whole like they start doing like the windows and stuff and all of that like right from the get-go, and they have like some sort of, I think they put the insulation or something like on the floor, like I don't know in which part of this process, but it's kind of like I don't know, it's different, it's just different. And the fact also like, because what I could tell, maybe I'm wrong, but I think this had like 2 floors. And even on those houses that they have 2 floors, and he already had like the roof, and I'm like, okay, you're putting the roof, but then you obviously like the ceiling was sort of like incomplete. That I think looked a little crazy to me, because in the others that I think I've seen, like they do the whole, or maybe it wasn't like 2 floors, because now I'm thinking about this. Maybe it's not the case, because I don't think that I saw like the floor, like what it would be like in the second floor, as in like you have to put a roof, on the first floor they have to like, they have to like put wooden beams and stuff. But I didn't saw that, so maybe I was wrong. Maybe they have like an attic. That was because I thought like the house like looked a little like, it looks like quite high. So that's why I'm like, oh yes, of course it has 2 floors. But now I'm like thinking about this. I'm trying to think of like the video, and I'm like, actually, I didn't saw stairs, and also like he didn't mention anything about a second floor. So maybe it's just me that I'm wrong, and it's just like the way. It's just like the roof, it has like a flat part, and then like they have like the whole triangles on top, actually. I don't know. Like I think I have to see the video again. But I do think like, again, it's all like different methods. I wouldn't say like one is better than the other necessarily, because again, I know that I'm like, oh, sturdier the better. Yes, of course. I think that makes sense. But I think like he already said, like this is sturdy enough, like because math and science like prove, and engineering has proven this to be a method that does not, like the house is not going to fall apart. And they also, again, they're like, they don't have earthquakes and they don't have storms, as in like a tornado. However, they do like, it needs to withstand the weight of like a lot of snow. So of course, like I can see like, okay, so maybe I believe you if you tell me like the house is sturdy enough, like yes, sure. it doesn't look, I think, like the joke of like, oh, American houses are like made out of cardboard, and then you're like you do like this, and then like, oh, the house is gonna topple over. Not like that. I do think like it looks sturdy enough to me, but again, I don't know anything about buildings, but a building in general. But like he knows what he's doing. Like he's been doing this for like a million years, so he's like, no, I know, I can, and besides, it's his own house. Like I think I know how to make it safe, and it's not gonna fall over. But again, it's like it's kind of crazy how they have like different methods, and everyone has like different methods, and it's sturdy like in every single construction. So in every single structure. So it's like, oh, okay. So there, it goes to show you like how many, like you can take like so many paths, and there's like so many different ways of doing things, and the end result it's the same. So it is really about like what it works for you. I wouldn't say one is better than the other, just because I'm not informed enough to actually say, oh yes, that one's better. But also I think like something very important, it's just like, and again, it's the case for all the other countries that obviously do their own building like in a very specific way, is obviously they're all adapted to a lot of things. Like you have to see again, like how like easy like transportation of the material is in this place in particular. The other is the climate, obviously how cold or how humid or how warm, how dry it is. Obviously I would say like that's the biggest thing, like because even if you like, oh, I love this, let's assume like you know more about like building, and you're like, oh yes, I want this a Scandinavian sort of like version, and I like the method of building, and I want to build this in I don't know, Florida or Arizona. Like probably it wouldn't be like they'll tell you like an architect who's gonna be like, no, you actually cannot do this, because they're in those places that you're planning on living, like the climate is very different, and the circumstances, as in like the nature circumstances are very different from something like Sweden or Scandinavia in general. So it makes sense to me that it is like, well, no, it's not because you like it. Like you can like it, and you're like, oh yes, I admire it and I really like it. Maybe there are some things that you can adapt, but I think ultimately you're gonna have to like adapt that to what you're actually like, where the house is going to be, because ultimately that's going to be like the deciding factor. And I don't think one's better than the other, just because everything has to adapt to like their own reality basically. And that's just like nature, which are like things that you can't actually like change, because maybe I'm trying to think of like, oh, maybe like it's the materials, and obviously money as well. Like apparently like they're like, well, we were poor, so we're making it frugal, and there's just like a lot of things that are like are about like saving money. Which of course, like building a house, I think it's not cheap. So obviously you want to like not cut cost, but try to like, I'm trying to save money in the areas in which I can. But I think like I don't know, like you may usually like, well, the cheaper is better. It's like, well, not necessarily. But again, it's just because they're like the construction methods were adapted because like, oh, we were poor. But maybe if you had like a lot of money and you're like, no, I don't care. Now it's just modern day and age. I have a lot of money and I can like transport every material and I have money to burn. And it's like, well, yes, but it's not feasible. Like where you live, you can't actually build something like this, because your house, like it's gonna be bad for the insulation. It's gonna be bad for, I don't know, your house. Maybe it's not gonna withstand the test of time, which I think ultimately is what's most important. It's like what houses should made to withstand the test of time and the harsh climate and snowstorms and natural disasters and earthquakes and whatever, as much as possible. Obviously there are some things that really go beyond your, it's like, no, it went out of like my way. Like there's just like no way like this structure could withstand this. But thinking positively, like houses should last 50, 100, I don't know if 100 years, but a long time. So ultimately you should do what's best for the house to actually withstand time and to be there standing in for as long as it's actually feasible and possible. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!